Be sure you have properly adjusted the volume and tone controls before you start to transcribe this record. Mr. Frank Haskins, 24 Elm Street, Waterbury, Connecticut. Dear Frank, yes, I certainly do recall the promise I made to you at the Chamber of Commerce dinner to deliver a short talk before the salesmanship class at the YMCA, and I shall be happy to do so. Paragraph. I have made note of the date, August 20th, and of the time, 8 p.m. Paragraph. In turning over in my mind what to speak about, I have selected the subject, 2 personal characteristics of the successful salesman. I hope that this subject will appeal to the members of your class. Paragraph. I am glad to do this for you because, as I told you before, I am deeply interested in what you are trying to accomplish at the YMCA. Sincerely yours, Sales Manager. 2 Personal Characteristics of the Successful Salesman by George R. Hayes, Sales Manager, the Sandfield Watch Company, Incorporated. Mr. Chairman and members of the salesmanship class of the YMCA, when my good friend and your instructor, Frank Haskins, invited me to address you briefly, I was glad to accept, for this occasion provides me with the opportunity both of expressing publicly my appreciation of the excellent work Mr. Haskins is doing here, and of congratulating you upon your ambition to learn more about the art and science of salesmanship. Paragraph. Your chairman was kind enough to refer to my 20 or more years of experience as sales manager of the Sandfield Watch Company, Incorporated. In preparing this talk for you on the subject, quote, 2 personal characteristics of the successful salesman, unquote, I went over in my mind all of the salesmen who have worked for me during those 2 decades, at least all I could recall. I picked out those whose records, according to the best of my recollection, proved that they had been successful. Opposite their names, I jotted down my impressions of their personal characteristics. After I had done that, I reviewed what I had written and found that the 2 personal characteristics that stood out were personality and initiative. Paragraph. To me, personality means that indefinable something about a man that causes people to like him and that enables him to get along well with people. A pleasing personality evidences itself in such external matters as a winning smile, good-looking teeth, a smooth voice, and a well-groomed appearance. Valuable as such matters are to a salesman, they are, after all, only the externals. Of far greater importance is that internal spirit, that lack of self-centeredness, that fervent willingness to put yourself out to make friends, and the ability to make friends of your customers and prospective customers is essential to success as a salesman. After all, customers buy from us not only because they like our goods, but because they like us as persons. Most of the successful salesmen I have known have had the ability to make friends easily, and I strongly suspect that this ability to make friends is grounded in the possession of a pleasing personality. Paragraph. The second personal characteristic that showed up strongly in my list was initiative. A good salesman is what used to be called, quote, a live wire, unquote. That is, he is electric and active in seeking out new business. He does not just make his calls upon his regular customers and upon leads furnished by the home office. No. He is constantly busy trying to get new accounts and to develop more business from his old accounts. Because he thinks for himself, because he does not force his sales manager to be constantly pushing him, he has what I call initiative, that is, the power of doing original work, of thinking for himself. Paragraph. In this connection, let me tell you a little story about John McCarthy, who was one of my best salesmen and who is now sales manager of the Cartwright C-A-R-T-W-R-I-G-H-T, Aviation Corporation. When John was with me, he worked in the New York City sales territory. For 2 years, he had tried to get our line of watches back into a large department store that we had lost as a customer because of a strong personal disagreement between the buyer and one of our salesmen who formerly had John's territory. The buyer was still resentful and would not listen to John's attempts to change his attitude. On one call, John noticed on the wall of the buyer's office several newly framed photographs of fishing scenes. In one, the buyer had been photographed standing by a large sailfish. When John's turn came to talk with the buyer, John, instead of talking about watches, began by referring to the photograph. His evident interest in sail fishing at once secured the friendly attitude of the buyer. I might make the story better by telling you that John then and there landed a big order, but that did not happen. For John was too smart to spoil this excellent impression by trying at that call to follow up his advantage. Instead, after the conversation about fishing, he merely said, quote, "Well, I'd like to drop in again next week and talk some more about fishing and watches," unquote. Then he left. Next week he got the order, paragraph. That story exemplifies what I mean by initiative. John had his eyes open for business. He saw the picture, but please note, he also recognized and seized the opportunity that picture opened to him, paragraph. In closing, let me say that there are many other personal characteristics that distinguish the successful from the mediocre or poor salesman. Because of limitation of time, I have touched on only 2. But I honestly believe that if you will seriously attempt to develop in yourselves the 2 qualities I have mentioned, you will be taking a long stride towards the goal you have set for yourselves, that of being successful salesmen.